Good afternoon, Oak Grove. Happy Thursday. Welcome to this week's installment of our Midweek Update series here on the church's YouTube channel, where I just populate into your devices in the middle of the week to say hello and to try to keep the church on our consciousness for the other days of the week outside of Sunday morning that we're not in worship, because that is oh so important for us to do. So thank you for taking a few minutes of your day to join me here. What are we going to talk about this week? Well, the 4th of July holiday is tomorrow. And so I had to borrow one from the social hall because I actually couldn't find one of my own that I actually own right now. I know we have some somewhere in the house, but I couldn't find any here in the house. So I just ran down to the social hall and grabbed one of the ones that Ruthie used to decorate the social hall. I have Old Glory here to join me this week. And I would put it out to all of you, first of all. What are your 4th of July traditions? Feel free to share in the comments of the YouTube video if you'd like to do that, or in the comments of the Facebook video. What kinds of things are you going to do to celebrate? I can say that for myself, I will definitely be going to the Zealy 4th of July parade again this year. I went to that last year and I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I remember old-timey small-town parades like that being a thing when I was a kid, that they were a big production. You know, they would go on for hours. They'd be really big and elaborate. But in the municipalities where my wife and I have lived in recent years, it kind of seems like those things have only shrunk in scope, and they're usually very short anymore. In a lot of places, those parades will go on for like 20 minutes these days. Well, the Zealy parade went for at least 2 hours last year. That was really cool. I enjoyed that. So I'll be doing that again. And then I had planned on just doing a little hot dog cookout here at the house with Julie and I. We weren't going to go anywhere. And then at the last minute, my family invited us to dinner. So we'll be going to dinner with them. And then we'll just watch the fireworks on TV in the evening. We typically don't go anywhere to watch fireworks locally. I know Zealy has a 4th of July fireworks show that we could attend locally. Unless we have a last-minute change of plans, we probably won't do that, but we might. We'll see. That's, I invite you, if you want to, just for the sake of making this participatory, share in the comments what your 4th of July traditions might be. That having been said, now that I got that fun part out of the way, I am going to steer the conversation here down a path that could possibly be very dangerous. And there will be those that say, oh, Pastor, be careful, you could get yourself in trouble. Well, I know I could get myself in trouble, but sometimes in life there are things that need to be said that can get you in trouble, but they still need to be said. I think the other important dimension for us to keep in mind with regards to the 4th of July this year is to think about, as we must think every year, think about the nature of our national holiday and our other national holidays as well. And I want to take some time to acknowledge the fact that in any given year, depending on who the current presidential administration might be, there are those that are enthusiastically celebrating our nation's birthday, and there are those that are saying, I don't feel like celebrating this year because this isn't the America that I want to live in. This isn't the America whose behavior I support right now. At every 4th of July, there are some folks who are saying, I don't feel like celebrating right now because I'm not feeling very proud of my country right now. There are folks that are saying that at any given time. Right now, there's a strong contingent of people that are saying that in our nation at this moment. So again, Pastor, be very careful here. I know, Pastor has to be very careful. I say to those people, I hear you. And I empathetically validate that you are allowed to feel that way. That doesn't mean that I'm saying I agree or disagree. It means that I hear you and I hear concerns that you are sharing. What is worth noting is that at any given time, there's a contingent of people who feel that way. And yet in the previous presidential administration, the other side was also feeling the same way. Our country is in a terrible way right now. Well, there are also those who felt that way with previous administrations as well, and it goes back and forth throughout history. There's always been a group that felt that way at one point or another. And so when I hear people say, whoever it is that they're specifically talking about, whether we're saying that right now in 2025 or whether we said that over the previous 4 years or the previous 4 years before that or the previous 8 years before that, there are the folks who say of whoever is in the Oval Office, he's not my president. And there are those who say, I'm not feeling like celebrating this holiday right now because I'm not proud of what our country may be up to at the moment. Well, here's why I will still celebrate the holiday regardless of who is president and who is not. I have never celebrated the holiday because I have the illusion in mind, even for a moment, that our country is always perfect. I know that it is not. I will still fly this flag and I will still watch the fireworks and I will still celebrate tomorrow to honor, if nothing else, my grandfathers who went to Europe and who went to the Pacific and who risked their lives and watched their comrades lose their lives to protect my safety and to protect my right to be able to criticize my government if I don't like what's going on. In honor of my grandfathers, I will fly this every year, regardless of who's president. And so actually, thank you very much, by the way, to Ruthie for putting this in the social hall. I may actually put this in the front yard tomorrow because I can't find any of my own. But, you know, in those moments of hyper-partisanship and extremism in which we find ourselves in recent years, maybe it is all the more important to look for the symbols that do unite us, to look at our neighbor who is probably not as extreme far to one side or the other of the political spectrum as are a lot of the politicians that we see on television. The honest truth is that most Americans are probably a little more moderate and centrist than the representations of politics that we see on television, and yet we have the politicians screaming at us to think that you got to be all the way over here or all the way over here. When in reality, there's actually a lot of people that are probably in here, but we just don't see and hear from them as much. And so, okay, maybe we're never going to build bridges with the politicians on the extremes that we can't agree with. But what do we have in common with our next door neighbor, who is probably not as extreme as the guy that's in the Oval Office at any given time, whether that's the one that's there now or the one before him or the one before him or the one before him? What do we have in common with our neighbor that does unite us? What common ground symbols do we have that remind us of everything that we should represent? That is why I think it's important to still fly this, and it's important to still celebrate the holiday, whether you are feeling particularly proud of whoever is in charge right now or not. Because it is a unifying symbol for us that reminds us of the things that we still have in common with our neighbor, who is probably a lot more moderate than the representations we see on television of our opponents and those we disagree with. It reminds us of the ideals and the values that brought us together as a nation hundreds of years ago in the first place. Instead of looking for the things that divide us, maybe it's time to look for the things we have in common. And maybe it's time to humanize that person next door. If we know that he voted for the guy that we didn't vote for, then maybe it's time to have a conversation with him and just listen without judgment, to hear them express why they feel the way they feel. And at the end of that conversation, that doesn't mean you have to agree with the conclusions that they come to about the best way to handle our nation's problems. We're still not going to agree at the end of the day. That's okay. You may not come to an agreement with him about the best way to solve our problems, but listening to his concerns, or hers, why they feel the way they feel, that humanizes the people on the other side. It reminds you that the folks on the other side may not be monsters. They may just be human beings who, like us, are trying to solve life's problems as best they can, but they think differently than we do based on their life experience. And so they've come to a slightly different conclusion about how to solve life's problems than we have. Is their conclusion perfect? No. guess what? Ours is probably not perfect either, whether we want to admit that or not. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking to myself today as I look forward to celebrating the 4th tomorrow. And I already saw the sentiments starting to go around on Facebook yesterday about the folks that don't feel like celebrating this year because they're not proud of the state of our country. And my response, once again, is I hear and I empathize that you have the right to feel that way. And I hear that you have passionate concerns, some of which I share. But that doesn't mean that I'm agreeing or disagreeing with your conclusions about how to handle the country's problems. It means that I'm hearing and empathizing with you, which is something that Jesus did all the time. And I think that's all the more I can say today without getting myself in any bigger trouble than I may have already gotten myself into. But these are my thoughts about why you will see me still sharing Old Glory and still celebrating the 4th, even knowing there are folks that are very unhappy with the direction of the country. Also knowing that there are many folks in my life who are very happy, that do approve of what's going on. You know what I know about people on both sides for sure? They are both children of God who are doing what they think is best. And I think that is where I'm going to cut it off for today, because there's not a whole lot more I can add that isn't going to get myself in trouble. These are just thoughts to reflect upon as we celebrate or don't celebrate the 4th of July tomorrow, sisters and brothers. That is what I've got for you today. Don't forget that this week is Outdoor Worship Week if the weather holds, which as of right now, the forecast looks like it will. God willing, I will see you all out in the back lawn of the church on Sunday morning to worship out in God's creation, out in the sunshine and underneath the leaves and the trees, and we will enjoy the beauty of creation as we do so. Thank you, Oak Grove. Have a wonderful week. I will see you on Sunday. Take care and God bless.